Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to talk about two of my absolute favorite focal lengths for taking portraits, 85mm and 35mm. They give very, very different results. You know, what you can achieve with each lens is very, very different. And I like shooting with both. When I go out on pretty much any portrait shoot, I'll generally take an 85 and a 35 with me because I just really like the look of both. 85 is usually my go-to, but 35 gives me really different kinds of stuff. So let's go through some of the advantages and disadvantages of each one. Of course, you might be thinking, what about 50mm? Yeah, what about that old nifty 50? And that is a really good focal length for portraits. That's one I use a lot, but I think we're gonna leave that to its own video. I think we're gonna do a full video about 50mm as a portrait lens because it's so versatile. There's so much you can do with it that I think it deserves its own full video. So right now, let's talk about the 35 and the 85. Now, I've actually been out taking some photos with both of these. I use them all the time, so I've got loads of examples, but I wanted to go take some photos with a 35 and an 85 in exactly the same place so you can see some of the differences that you'll get with the lenses. So starting with the 35mm, this is a lens that I like to use for things like environmental portraits. So we've talked about environmental portraits before, including the actual scene, the environment within your photo, you know, as part of the portrait, having the person in the scene. So it kind of is more about where they are as opposed to just focused solely on the subject. So with 35mm, it's obviously a wider field of view. You're gonna get more of the background in shot. You're gonna get more of the surrounding area in the photo. So it's worth being aware of that. It's worth knowing exactly what you want to include and what you don't want to include. 35mm, also being wider, allows you to get a little bit closer into your subject if you want to. Now, there's a couple of ups and downs with this. It allows me personally to get in pretty close and actually change up my angles quite a bit because it's wider. So what I do with 35s a lot, which I don't do with 85s, is shoot from lower down, shooting up. Now, the reason for that is it's kind of a hero shot. You know, it makes the subject look more charismatic, more kind of heroic because you're looking up at them. So it can be a very flattering kind of pose in that sense. It's a good way to shoot your subject, make them look important. And that's something that I like to do with a 35mm lens. Now, something you need to be aware of when you're doing that is distortion caused by how wide something like a 35mm is. You know, it's not super wide, but if you get too close, you are going to start getting arms that look massive or something like that, and it isn't always the most flattering thing that you want to go for. I find that 35mm looks great if you pull back a little bit from your subject. On the other hand, 85mm is a very, very nice flattering lens. Now, both of these lenses that I've got here, f1.4, so really fast, you can get that nice blurred out background. But what I find with 85mm more than really 35 or even 50 is you get such good separation of subject and background. Because you are further away, and you can see in some of these photos that I've had to stand further away from my subject to actually get the same image. There are a few things that result from doing that. So the first thing is you get more compression, which means that background is just beautifully blurred out. You get much better separation of subject and background. Now that means that the photo becomes more about who the subject is as opposed to where the subject is with the 35mm. That's the biggest thing I think for me with the 35 versus the 85 is 35 is where they are, 85 is who they are. Big, big deal. Another thing you get from the compression of having that longer focal length and being further away from your subject is a slightly more controlled background. So whereas with the 35, you're getting quite a lot of background, it's a much wider field of view. With the 85mm, the actual amount of background that's going to be in the shot is significantly reduced. And actually you can get away with quite a lot more. So if you're in a not such a pleasant area, but there's one small bit of background that looks all right, you can absolutely use that. Whereas with the 35mm, that's going to be a little bit more difficult. You can absolutely control what's going to be in your shot very easily with the 85mm. So for example, in a street, you might have with the 35mm, you might have a lot of the cars in shot, but with the 85mm, you might be able to actually completely remove them. We've done a full video on controlling your background like this, using a 70 to 200mm lens. So I'll link that down in the description so you can check that out because it's definitely worth checking out. Now, of course, like I've mentioned a few times with the 85mm, you do have to stand a little bit further away from your subject to be able to get them in shot. And especially if you're going for a full body shot, it's a little bit more difficult because you do have to have a bit more space to actually back up into. But the results are fantastic. And it's definitely worth persevering with that. So whether you're talking about a 35 or an 85, there's no wrong answers here really. It all comes down to what you want to achieve with your photo, with your portrait. Whether you want it to be more of a straight, portrait, blurred background, you know, and you've focused on who this person is. Or whether you want to have more of the scene in there, whether you want to have a wider view, whether you want to have maybe a lower angle shooting up and mess around with some of that stuff. You know, there's no wrong answers here. Both of these are lovely lenses and really lovely focal lengths to work with. So it all comes down to just personal preference, really. Now, I'll pop a full list of all the stuff that I use for these photos down in the description, so you can go and check that out for yourself. Go and look at all these lenses. Lovely, lovely lenses. Of course, if there's anything else you want to see, pop it down in the comments. I'll do my best to make any video that would be interesting to you guys. So absolutely help me out by letting me know what you want to see down there. Of course, like and subscribe and all that cool stuff that all us YouTubers ask you to do. I will see you in the next video. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.